We are looking at the different approaches to home education. Now we will discuss the Montessori approach. And joining me in the Homeschool Lounge is Vivienne du Preez. She is a Montessori-trained teacher who home educates her twin sons. Viv, please tell us what the Montessori approach is and how it differs from traditional schooling that most of us are familiar with.
Okay, the Montessori approach was developed by a lady called Maria Montessori about 120 years ago in Italy, and gained much notoriety around the world because of the incredible results that she was able to achieve with very young children, especially between the ages of 3 and 6. She dubbed this period in the child's life the absorbent mind period, and she discovered through much observation as a GP and psychologist and professor of mathematics that children are able to quite literally absorb information far more readily than having to learn it by rote during this special time, this age 3 to 6 period in their lives. So what makes the Montessori method very different to all the other methods is that she developed a range of equipment that allows the children to have a very concrete understanding of abstract concepts like literacy and mathematics. The approach is to follow the child, like a lot of her contemporaries discovered at that time, rather than putting children in desks and making them be quiet and sit down. We really focus on following the child where they are in their maturity and level of acceptance and even obedience, and whether they are able to pay attention or whether they just want to play. As Montessori teachers, we rather direct the children than dictate or teach to them. So we do this, attracting their attention using the materials which are designed in a way that they teach the children rather than one having to show them how it's done. An example of this would be a lock and a key. When you give a child a set of locks and a set of keys, there is only one way that the keys and locks fit together. They can discover this themselves. You don't have to teach them. And through figuring out lessons yourself, it builds neural pathways in your brain far better than having to learn things by rote. So the method very much involves using hands. It's very hands-on. When you use 2 hands doing something repeatedly and uninterrupted that is interesting to the mind, it builds neural pathways. And this is true of anyone at any age, but specifically with the children at the age 3 to 6 absorbent mind phase, they're taking in this information in a somewhat unconscious manner that allows them to really set it deep within their minds for later use. From what I've observed with my children, who are, I've got a boy and a girl who are now 5, I've been training them since age 2. They've been reading and writing since age 3. And anybody who's got little children knows you cannot tell them what to do. They will decide whether they want to interact with you or not. And through using these very attractive and colorful materials, they have taken in the whole phonic alphabet and are able, we don't teach writing. They one day pick up a pen and they just start writing themselves. And through various exercises that lead up to this point, like using tongs and tweezers, their fingers are trained to hold a pen. So we don't have to ever tell them this is how you hold a pen. They naturally figure out that tweezers only work in this manner. When you pick up a pen, they figure out that their hand is already trained to follow the letters and to follow the numbers.
Viv?
Montessori, yes.
Sorry to interrupt you there. You're mentioning young children, and
Yes.
I can see the benefit, but does Montessori work for older children as well? Could I apply it in my primary and my high school years?
Unfortunately for us, Montessori died before she was able to really give us curriculums for high school. So, for example, this year I'm doing my age 6 to 9 training, and there are programs that you can do maths and literacy for age 9 to 12. But by that time, the mind of the child has really flicked over into be able to understand abstract concepts. So algebra and advanced geometry and maths and trigonometry and that kind of thing, they are able to understand it. So there's no more need for the very focused use of materials, which is what Montessori based all the training on. So a lot of people are, especially in the homeschool community and in the schools that are opening up in Cape Town, are moving more to like a Cambridge curriculum, which seems to be based on the critical thinking approach as well. So Montessori was more focused on the younger children because of the special mind that they have that needs concrete evidence in order to understand these abstract concepts like reading and writing and maths. So that's why it's very much focused on the age 3 to 6, and then one can explore it later, and it's taking off like a bomb all over the world. People are training up in the methodology, but the very special time that she discovered was the 3 to 6. And she figured out that every 3 years, the mind changes into a different phase. So it goes from the absorbent mind phase in age 3 to 6 to a more imaginative, abstract, creative phase in age 6 to 9, where they're just not interested in the materials anymore. They really do get it. They can do maths in their head. They can start figuring out times tables, and not through rote learning, but because they have manipulated the materials from when they were much younger. And it's quite an extensive curriculum that is also available in the Montessori method. So they do, as I mentioned, language and maths. We also have a big focus on cultural studies. So they learn about science and biology and geography and space and planets, continents, people from around the world, languages from around the world, food from around the world, from a very young age, because they are in the preschool environment involved in different people of different cultures and of different ages. So the 3-year-olds and the 6-year-olds are in the same class, and they teach each other. The older ones teach the younger ones, and they are proud and happy to do it. And the younger ones look up to the older ones, and it helps the teacher to remove herself from having to teach the children. They teach each other. And the point of having the prepared environment, as Montessori calls it, is that there's a room full of small furniture. So it's like the big world, but it is built especially for the small children to engage with. And it really is a snippet of later life when you're older. You're not all the same age, of the same gender, in the same room. And it very much prepares the children better for life, I feel, from what I've studied and seen with the philosophy, than the current sort of psychology of the school system that we have at the moment.
Is Montessori then suitable for home education, where you might have siblings of different ages, or you might just have a single child? Would it work there, or is it best suited to a classroom type situation?
I think that for myself, what I have discovered, I've only done my teacher training in a classroom. I found it was incredible to work one-on-one with the children and in groups. And I find for my home environment, my children are exactly the same age because they're twins. But when you have children, a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old who are siblings, you can use the same equipment and the same curriculum to train those children. So I think for myself and what I've seen, it's very beneficial for a homeschool environment, because you have the materials that you can make yourself, and you can watch YouTube video tutorials, or like I did, formal training to help you to understand the methodology and help prepare the children for later curriculums or whatever type of schooling they're wanting to you're wanting to educate them from a homeschool perspective. So I would say, in my direct experience, it's been incredible, and I'm just so passionate about studying further in order to pass the information on to my children.
How accessible is Montessori to parents, thinking of parents who live in rural areas. Is the material such that you can make it yourself, or should you purchase it? What do I need if I want to start using the Montessori approach?
I think you just need to, as long as you can get hold of internet or even books. Her training, it can be done without the internet. I've bought and read all the books and all the information is there. So it starts with an interest in the method. So people mentioned it to me, and I watched my neighbors homeschooling, and I somehow put the whole thing together myself. And when people hear about Montessori, they need to go and do some research as to what is it. And the materials are very accessible to make. So, for example, here we have one of her most famous materials, which are the sandpaper letters. I'm seeing them in reverse. I'm not sure I've got the, as we say phonetically, the A and the Z. This is the phonetic sound. So it's made of either a cardboard or a wood. I purchased these ones. And then the letters are cut out of sandpaper. And Montessori discovered that when you engage the senses of the child, so they trace the shape of the letter with their fingers, and it helps imprint the shape into their minds, and they say the sound. So we say to them, this is A. It's not A, it's not apple, it's not anything else. The sound is A, and they learn to read phonics, and this sound is Z. And when they touch it with their fingers, they can feel the roughness, and it helps build those neural pathways of the shape of the letter. And they say it, they see it, they hear it, they touch it. Short of tasting it, they're basically covering all the senses, and that helps them to really imprint and remember what is going on with the concept that you're trying to teach them. So this is very accessible for people to make. And then another example of the type of mathematics equipment that we use, these are called the golden beads. So these are beads that are, I bought these, they were yellow beads, and actually spray painted them gold. So it's very accessible for people to do themselves. And we have them strung up here in sets of 10. So this is actually how we teach the decimal system. So they count the beads 1 to 10 and 10 to 20. And for example, this is a long string. So this is 100 beads. They can feel the 100, they can count the 100. It's not just an abstract concept that somebody is telling them. They can really grasp it and count it themselves. So those are examples of probably two of the best known materials that are included in the Montessori curriculum.
Now that sounds quite easy enough to do. I wanted to ask you earlier, but you've answered it already, that Montessori is primarily then for your primary school years. If I missed my opportunity from 3 to 6 year old and my son is now 8, can I still introduce Montessori to him, or have I missed the boat?
I think the very basic Montessori materials he won't be interested in, because his mind has changed over to the ability to have abstract understanding. The beauty of the materials is that they can be used at any age, I would say, and with any curriculum. So, for example, the people that are working in the schools teaching the Cambridge curriculum, they're still using the golden beads to help the children to understand maths, where if they are struggling and not able to understand the very abstract concepts, they can show them concretely at any age that this is what 10 looks like, this is what 100 looks like, and this is 1,000 beads. Can you count 1,000 beads? You say to an 8-year-old, they'll be probably very excited about the fact, and it will help them to understand their numbers and help them to understand what 1,000 looks like and feels like. So I would say there is that absorbent mind phase where it goes in automatically, but the materials can be used to back up any other curriculum at any time.
Just one thing I wanted to just clarify in my mind. You mentioned that you have a rich environment and you follow the child. So would I have a room where I put out the number blocks, the letter blocks, and like a play kitchen and follow the child around? Or do I decide, okay, today I want the child to focus on phonetics and I'll just put all my phonetic cards out?
A little bit of both, I'd say, because you can't tell the child what to do. If you are really going to honor the child and, in my opinion, help direct them correctly rather than teach them. So what I do is I have all the materials out with a basic kind of plan in mind. So I will put out puzzles, and I will put out a chalkboard with chalk, and I will put out a big pad of paper with crayons, and whatever the children want to interact with, they again get to make that choice. And if they don't want to interact with any of it, then they can run outside and play on the jungle gym. Or they can say to me, I'm bored, what can I do? And then they also need to learn to be bored and to use their own imaginations in order to facilitate their own learning as well. We can't constantly bombard them with things to do for our prerogative. So for myself, I will make sure that they're following the curriculum to the best of my ability. So I'll get in a little bit of maths and a little bit of phonics and a little bit of cultural activities, but I kind of weave it in. So, you know, for dinner, they're going to be counting their peas, and they don't know that I'm actually tricking them into doing some decimal system work, and it just goes in there. So I think one has to be creative as well when it comes to the homeschooling. It's hard work, and it's definitely there's no break for the homeschooling mother. I'm teaching them 7 days a week, whether they are consciously aware of it or not. Everything is a lesson.
Viv, thank you very much. I can see you are excited about this approach, and I love the fact how we use children's natural curiosity and willingness or desire to learn, and just to see how it builds into their lives for future learning. So thank you very much for telling us more about the Montessori approach.